Hey, it's Zach from HowChew. Today I want to do a quick review of the NES Mini Raspberry Pi case from Kintaro, formerly known as Old School Tools. Now, as you remember, at the end of 2016, Nintendo released the NES Classic Edition, which is a small NES clone that had 30 emulated games on it. It was pretty sweet. What sucks though is now you expect to pay about $200 on eBay for one. See, Nintendo really intended it as being like a promotional item or limited release. People kind of assumed they'd just keep selling it until nobody wanted to buy it anymore like the original NES, but that wasn't the case. So I was lucky enough to get one through a friend for about 50 bucks, which was the original price. Guess he had an extra one and he's a nice guy. But before that, I probably wouldn't have bought one for $200, so I started looking for other options for making one. Now, since I'm a huge fan of the Raspberry Pi and emulating games on it using RetroPie, I thought I'd just find a Pi case. So there are a couple options there. You can 3D print one, but of course you need to have a 3D printer, and you need two different colors of filaments that are pretty close to the original color, and a lot of time, and it still probably wouldn't look that great unless you really know what you're doing 3D printing wise. So then I came across this small case on Amazon made by Kintaro, and you just put your Raspberry Pi 3 in it, looks like an NES, pretty cool. So I emailed the manufacturer and I asked if they'd send us one so that we could review it. And they sent us 15, which is pretty awesome. So we'll be giving those away on our Facebook. There's a link there in the video description, because obviously I only need one. Now, of course, they didn't pay us to do this review, and as always, we'll remain unbiased. Obviously on the bottom is the original Nintendo, which is a little bit yellowed, not actually by age, but by smoke. I bought it secondhand on eBay, and the person that had this was a smoker. Kind of ironic, given this sticker. So then we have the NES Mini, or the NES Classic Edition, which is the one that was sold by Nintendo in 2016. And finally, the Kintaro Raspberry Pi case. As you can see, the color between these two is very, very similar. And the original color of the Nintendo is also similar. So as far as color goes, it's spot on. Now the form factor is a little bit different. Obviously the original Nintendo is rectangular. The NES Classic is rectangular. And the Kintaro case is rectangular, but in the other direction. The reason that they did this was so that they could actually have the ports come out here, which is actually really cool. I think maybe they could have had the ports come out of the side instead, and then have this open to access something different, but obviously you're limited to where things are placed on the Raspberry Pi 3. And on the side, obviously you have your HDMI, your micro USB for power, and your audio out, in case you want to play while other people are sleeping. And a really nice feature is on the back. You actually can access your SD card externally, although you don't really need to do that after you have your Raspberry Pi set up, as you can add retro games via USB or over your network, which is actually the method that you'd want to use for RetroPie. So those are the similarities between the three, except of course instead of games, you have access to your ports. One thing that I kind of was upset about was that there was no LED in here. However, the manufacturer did leave a hole there so you could add your own, which would be quite easy to do. Or you could run a little piece of fiber optics out, which is what I'm going to end up doing before the end of the video, so that you can see when it's on without actually having to wire up a separate LED. Of course, these buttons on the front don't work, but that's kind of expected. It wasn't advertised at all, but it's still a nice touch that they're there. All right, let's see what's in the box. So you'll still see this sold as Old School Tools. They told me that they're rebranding as Kintaro, which is a Japanese folk hero, which is kind of cool. But as the time of this video, you'll probably see it sold as Old School Tools. So inside the box, you get a couple of stickers. Pretty neat. Looks like they are coming out with a Super Nintendo version of this to coincide with the SNES Mini launch by Nintendo, and they actually told me about this. And that next case will have actual buttons and some sort of cooling system. So it'll probably be a little bit more expensive. I'm definitely gonna get my hand on both because, NES and SNES. So anyways, got these stickers inside the case. You have some screws for putting it together, which came out of the bag here. And it comes with heat sinks. So this case costs about $20. You can expect to pay $10 to $15 for a really great case, or around $10 for a pretty decent Raspberry Pi case usually. And then you end up paying about $5 for heat sinks, so with shipping. So this isn't actually that bad of a deal. You'd probably pay about $15 to get these two together, and so for an extra $5 you can get the NES case, which is pretty cool. So take your Raspberry Pi 3 and place it in. I already have a heatsink on mine, but it comes with a second heatsink, and this is actually for the Ethernet chip, which after the CPU is the hottest thing on the Pi, believe it or not, even hotter than the GPU. So I'll go ahead and place this heatsink on there, which is the small chip on the top of the board. Looks like they do use actual 3M tape, which is important. A lot of cheap heat sinks will use some crappy no-name tape to adhere them, and it actually does matter because a lot of the heat transfer properties that make the heat sink effective are only effective if you have the right adhesive. So if I were to just like glue this on or use super glue or silicone, it wouldn't work the same. You definitely want to have a high quality adhesive, and it looks like they do have 3M here, which is great. And it's on the Ethernet chip. So now I'm going to go ahead and put the case together. One thing I don't like is that there aren't rubber feet. Not the end of the world, but it does kind of slide around a little bit. So obviously assembly is very simple. And of course, after installing RetroPie, you're pretty much good to go. I usually use Bluetooth controllers when I'm playing RetroPie, and it's a really nice model with very little lag. I have a video, or rather a guide on configuring that on how to. But you could also use one of these cheaper USB controllers and plug it right in the front here, which is pretty nice. So you can plug 4 of them in, but I could see it moving around a lot while you play, depending on where you put it, which might be a little bit annoying since it's so light. Now there's some space inside the case, which is kind of nice. There's nice ventilation. There's slots on the bottom and the top, which is definitely important. And there's also this empty cavity in here, which you could use for adding a push button for power if you wanted to, or on the back. So what I'll probably do is drill a small hole here, add a small push button. I also have a guide for that in the video description, and that'll turn the Pi on and off, since of course it has no actual power button. I'm also going to go ahead now and run a little piece of fiber optic through here. Won't be super bright, but it'll at least tell me that it's on, so if I forget to turn it off, I can shut it down, which of course you can do through the RetroPie interface or by installing that power button. Now usually when I want to add a power indicator to my Pi, I'll just use a small LED and wire it up to the GPIO pins, which is really easy. But I don't have any LEDs this small, and I don't really want to drill a hole in the front and like ruin the whole look of it and have this big gaping hole, because I used all my small LEDs up on other projects. So I'm going to use some fiber optics I had lying around. I bought these for another project to do like a star thing. So I had some left over, and you can get spools of this stuff for like $5 on Amazon. So I'm just going to cut a couple of them to length, then I'm going to hot glue them together to the status LED that's built into the Pi here. And it should carry the light with 4 or 5 of these pretty nicely to the front. Maybe in a super bright room it won't show up great, but it'll be good enough and it'll look neat. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So I'm just going to take a couple pieces of shrink wrap here, as you usually use for wires, and I'm going to put them around the fiber optic filament to hold it all together, and then snip them so that they're even, carefully without cracking them too much. And then I'm going to glue this down to the LED here, and then same on the front, and then the light should show through quite nicely. The LEDs are actually visible from the back outside the case, but obviously I'm going to have this up on my TV on my fireplace, and I'm not going to be able to see that, so I'm running these fiber optics to route it to the front. But if you don't want to do that, you can still see it from the back, see that it's on. Well, and there you have it. A little bit of hot glue, about 10 minutes of work, and 15 cents worth of material. And now we have a nice bright LED on the front. So, you know, you could add your own LED if you want, or just do some fiber optics. And these are pretty handy for a lot of projects. It's still visible from the back, but now you can see it from the front. It's actually a little bit brighter than you can see in the video because of the lights that I have set up here. Overall, I'm super happy with this case. It's actually quite impressive. I mean, it's just barely more expensive than a normal case, plus heat sinks. And you always want to have heat sinks. Apparently this is this company's first product, which is great. So I like to support small businesses. And I'm excited to see what they come out with next. The SNES Mini case, they told me, has some sort of sliding power buttons for shutting it down, just like the real SNES had. And it'll also have some kind of built-in cooling system, which is exciting. I've never actually seen that in a Raspberry Pi case before. So I'll definitely be doing a quick review of that one when it comes out as well. If you like this case, I definitely recommend picking one up. I mean, it's about 20 bucks. There's a link in the video description. And I really don't think you'll be upset with it when you get it. So anyways, subscribe so we can, show you more stuff in the future. And as always, thanks for watching.